Hello and welcome to the FatBoss Guide to the Shah of Pride, 10-man normal in the Siege of Orgrimmar.
Hello.
And this fight is the last fight you'll be doing in your lovely panda temple place where you are, in your little tomb, wherever the fuck you are, I don't even know where you are, before you go to Orgrimmar. So it is a really nice way of finishing off this sort of zone before you do go and send it right to Garrosh. So yeah, it's good place.
For this encounter you want to bring 2 tanks, 2 or 3 healers, and a mixture of ranged and melee DPS.
Now this fight is arguably a one-phase fight. Well, there is like phase 2, but phase 2 is the boss is kind of doing a bit of AoE, guys. So yeah, it's pretty much the exact same fight all the way through. So as long as you can kind of learn what the boss does and how to counter it, it's so easy. Like, it's a very execution-based fight.
As you may have noticed, this is another encounter where you're given like a new meter, and we'll explain that right away. What the meter is, it's a pride meter. And it works very similar the way that the corruption meter works on the Cho'Gall fight. Each time you are hit by an ability, you are given some pride to your pride meter. And at 25, 50, 75 and 100%, an ability called Swelling Pride will have an additional effect on you.
Now, Swelling Pride is basically once the Shah of Pride reaches 100 energy, it will do a raid-wide AoE of doing about like 350 odd K. And this will add 5 pride to your meter. Now, there are a lot of additional effects, and we're going to go through each one of them because you do need to change how you act for this ability when this does come in, because otherwise you're going to be giving your whole raid group a hell of a lot of pride, but not in a good way. So we're going to go through each single one now. Now the first one is bursting pride. Now this is when you're between 25 and 49 pride. Now when swelling pride goes off, bursting pride takes effect. It'll make a patch on the ground underneath you. Now after 3 seconds it will explode, doing another 300k damage to anyone within 5 yards, and it also gives you 5 pride if you do take damage from it. So the best thing to do is just move. After the swelling pride goes off, just make sure your raid kind of spreads out and then goes back in on itself again. So it's a really simple one. Now, if you're between 50 and 74 pride, bursting pride will no longer take effect. It's only now you'll only be affected by something called projection. So swelling pride's come back in, and now this projection will kick in, and it basically creates a projection 15 yards away from your position. Basically, what you need to do, you need to run to it and stay with it, and then after a couple of seconds, it will explode. And if you're not in like right next to it, it will do a bunch of raid-wide AoE and gives everyone pride. However, if you're inside it, you kind of stop any damage going out.
Now, if you're between 75 and 99 pride, you'll get Aura of Pride when the next Swelling Pride comes in. Now, this will give you an aura that deals 250k damage to anyone within 5 yards of you for around 25 seconds, and it ticks pretty quickly, and each tick will also give them 5 pride. So you need to make sure that if you are affected by this ability, that you spread out by at least 5 yards. Really, you'll probably never see this ability unless you've done something really wrong. You should never ever have this much pride in normal mode. And ultimately, if you reach 100 pride, you've done something very wrong, and a new ability will take hold called Overcome. Now, this will actually give you a 50% damage and healing increase.
Because you're so proud, Lawrence. You should be.
Because you're super proud of yourself. But when the next Swelling Pride comes in, you'll be permanently mind-controlled and will have 100% extra health. And you'll start fucking up your raid.
Yeah.
So when that happens, that's really bad.
So never reach 100 pride. If you manage to do that, you've literally stood in everything you could have possibly stood in and gone AFK. So make sure you never reach 100 pride. And we're going to teach you right now how not to reach 100 pride, because otherwise you'll just look like an idiot. So we're going to go through each one of his abilities and how you're going to counter them so you don't look like a mong. Now the first ability we're going to talk about is Mark of Arrogance. Now this will put a dot on 2 people that will last the rest of the encounter, and it does about 70k damage every time it ticks, but this can stack. So really you want to be dispelling this, and whoever does dispel this effect will gain 5 pride, and it can't be mass dispelled, so it will be 2 healers will need to dispel each one. To be honest, it's very worth dispelling this because there is quite a lot of high burst damage, and then that extra tick, especially if it's on a lot of people, which it will be later on in the fight, it's just worth getting rid of it, so just make sure you do.
Now for the tanks to worry about is an ability called Wounded Pride. This will put a debuff on the tank that lasts around 10 to 15 seconds, that makes it so each time they're hit by the boss, they will gain 5 pride, which is pretty crazy. So as soon as this does happen, the opposite tank that is not affected by the debuff needs to taunt.
Yep.
And then you just keep taunt swapping pretty simple. That's all you need to do with that. Now, there is an ad that spawns in this encounter called the Manifestation of Pride. Now, this ad will always spawn in the exact same place at the back of the room. Now, this ad has very little health, and you can just blow it up straight away. It doesn't even really need to be tanked. Ultimately, if there is a tank that isn't tanking that wants to go pick it up, they can, just to do a little bit more damage. But really, that you don't really need to worry about this ad. The only thing you need to worry about, really, is that when it does die, the 2 closest players to it will gain 5 pride. So you need to make sure that the 2 closest players, when it does die, are not people with really high pride. So you want people to almost rotate, just so the pride's even throughout your raid as you're going to kill these ads. Now, these ads, while they're up, they can actually cast something called Mocking Blast. This will hit a random player for around 230k damage-ish, and will actually give them 5 pride. But you can interrupt this, so make sure that you do. These ads can actually be stunned, so feel free to go nuts for stuns as well.
The boss has also got another ability called Self-Reflection. Now, this causes up to 5 players to create a black patch underneath their feet. Now, after 2 or 3 seconds, these patches will explode, dealing 250k damage within 2 yards. So it's a very, very small explosion, but it does add 5 pride to you, and also adds spawn from these patches. They don't really do anything, just AoE them, and they can also be stunned and stuff like that, so just quick, big AoE on top of them, get rid of them, and just make sure that when they do explode, you do move slightly, because otherwise you will be hit by that ability, so nothing too much to worry about.
Now, a newish sort of mechanic that's been added to this boss is something called Corrupted Prison. The boss will target 2 random players that aren't tanks and put them in 2 different Titan prisons. And these Titan prisons are like in circles scattered around where the boss is. There's 4 in total. Now, when they are first put in, the prisons will give an AoE knockback. So if anyone is already stood on those locations, they'll get fired away. So make sure that you're not stood on top of them. If you do actually take damage from this knockback, you'll also gain pride.
Yeah.
So it's another reason not to stand on top of it. Now, when players are in prison, they are stunned and start taking ticking damage. And every time it ticks, you'll also gain pride. What a surprise. Now, the only way that you can release a player is by standing on, like, the locks of the prison, and they're, like, lit up by orange markers. You need 2 players to release 1 prison. There'll always be a prison that spawns near the tanks, and there'll always be a prison that spawns near the raid, if you're positioned like you see in this video. So you want the tanks to release the prison that spawns near them, and you want the raid to release the prison that spawns near the raid. And it's important that when you do actually stand on these orange locks that you do stay there. Sometimes it does glitch out a bit and you'll stand on it and then walk away, but it didn't actually release it. Make sure you stay there and wait until the person's released. Now, as a tank, if you are actually tanking the boss, you want to make sure that you're stood on the closest orange lock. If you stand on the furthest away orange lock, you'll be out of melee range and the boss will then spaz out and try and hit other people. So tanks need to communicate on which one they're standing on. But apart from that, very simple mechanic, just make sure you 3 people as quick as you possibly can.
Now, the thing is, it's not all that bad. There's other mechanics that are here to help you. For some reason, Nurashen is going to be very nice, and he's going to give you a buff called Gift of the Titans. Now, this periodically grants players immunity from any pride effects for 20 seconds. Now, if everyone with this buff stands together, they will gain a buff called Power of the Titans. It gives you 15% haste, damage, and healing increase.
So this is why you want the raid stacked the whole time, more or less. And the only reason why the raid would ever move is when the ads are spawning underneath your feet or you're opening prisons.
However, because there are such abilities such as self-reflection, you know, the patches under the ground that explode and then ads come out, or say you've got far too much pride and you do need to move out of the groups, it is much more important that you still do react to those mechanics and then group back up once those mechanics are over and done with. But yeah, grouping up, it just makes it a lot easier for your healers to heal as well. So at 30%, the boss will start going absolutely apeshit and start dealing 250k ticking damage to everyone every 10 seconds. And each one of these ticks will give you 5 pride. However, all your pride is reset at 30%. So it's pretty much a soft enrage. Can you kill the boss before you go absolutely insane? But all the other mechanics are still going on.
So really, this phase 2, it's not really phase 2. They just added one new ability. Your pride's reset, just keep killing the boss, and you have to heal a little bit more. That's the only difference.
Yeah, pretty much.
Try and avoid getting as much pride as possible, and that's it.
So overall, this boss, it's really just about learning how not to take a lot of pride and how to like free people from prison. So it's a fairly simple boss, and you should be able to like deal with the mechanics. Like after you had a little play around with it, you'll kind of get your head around it. But to be honest, the DPS and healing output, and even like the tanking like ability or anything, you don't need to be amazing. So you should be able to do this fight, whoever really you are. So it's quite a good fight considering how early on in the instance it is.
So thanks for watching, guys. If this guide helped you out, then please do drop us a like, and make sure to comment, rate, and subscribe.
If you'd like to see any of our other 10-man normal Siege of Orgrimmar guides, then please do click upon the annotations you see on your screen here, and that will just take you over to those videos.
Thanks for watching.
Thank you all.